welcome again to the Study Bible Study, where we study the Bible with study Bibles. And Revelation 17:14 tells us, "And these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall conquer them, for he is Lord of lords, he is King of kings. And they who are with him are called and chosen and faithful." God bless and amen. "And our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen." Now, welcome back to our Communist Manifesto study on... Anyways, let's get to it. Proletarians and communists. In what relation do communists stand to proletarians as a whole? Now, the communists do not form a separate party opposed to the other working class parties. They have no interests separate and apart from these of the proletariat as a whole. They do not set up any sectarian principles of their own by which to shape and mold the proletarian movement. Now, the communists are distinguished from other working class parties by this only. First, in the national struggles, the proletarians of the different countries, they point out and bring to the front the common interests of the entire proletariat, independently of all nationality. Secondly, in the various stages of development which the struggle of the working class against the bourgeoisie has to pass through, they always and everywhere represent the interests of the movement as a whole. Now, the communists, therefore, are, on one hand, practically the most advanced and resolute section of the working class parties of every country, that section which pushes forward all others. Of the other hand, theoretically, they have over the great mass of the proletariat the advantage of clearly understanding the line of a march. Now, the conditions and the ultimate general results of the proletarian movement, the immediate aim of the communist is the same, is that of the other proletarian parties: formation of the proletariat into classes, overthrow of the bourgeoisie supremacy, conquest of political party by the proletariat. The theoretical conclusions of the communists are in no way based on ideas or principles that have been invented or discovered by this or that would-be universal reformer. They merely express in general terms actual relations springing from an existing class struggle, from a historical movement going on under their very eyes. The abolition of existing property relations is not at all a distinctive feature of communism. The abolition of existing property relations is not at all a distinctive feature of communism. Now, all property relations in the past have continually been subject to a historical change consequent upon the change of historical conditions. The French Revolution, for example, abolished feudal property in favor of the bourgeoisie property. Now, the distinguishing feature of communism is not the abolition of property generally, but the abolition of the bourgeoisie property. The modern bourgeoisie private property is the final and most complete expression of the system of producing and appropriating products that is based on class antagonisms, on the exploitation of the many by the few. Now, in this sense, the theory of the communists may be summed up in a single sentence: abolition of private property. I guess that means that the communists just want to own everything. No upper class, no middle class, just, I guess, the political class. Now, we communists have been reproached with the desire of abolishing the right of personality acquiring property as the fruit of man's own labor, which property is alleged to be the groundwork of all personal freedom, activity, and independence. Well, that's kind of true, huh? In today's world, that is how we measure ourselves, by what we own, and literally what we own is what we've accomplished. The things you cannot see means, well, you didn't accomplish anything in the eyes of the world today. Now, hard-won, self-acquired, self-earned property. Do you mean the property of the petty artisan and of the small peasant, a form of property that preceded the bourgeoisie form? There is no need to abolish that. The development of industry has to a great extent already destroyed it, and it is destroying it daily. Piece by piece, inch by inch, they're slowly chewing on it and taking it away from you. Now, or do you mean the modern bourgeoisie, private property? But does the wage labor create any property for the laborer? Not a bit. It creates capital. Example, that kind of property which exploits wage labor and which cannot increase except upon condition of begetting a new supply of wage labor for fresh exploitation. Property in its present form is based on the antagonism of capital and wage labor. Let us examine both sides of this antagonism. Now, to be a capitalist is to have not only a purely personal but a social status in production. Capital is a collective product, and only by the united action of many members, nay, in the last resort, only by the united action of all members of society can it be set in motion. Capital is, therefore, not a personal, it is a social power. When, therefore, capital is converted into common property, into the property of all members of society, personal property is not thereby transformed into social property. It is only the social character of the property that is changed. It loses its class character. Let us now take wage labor. The average price of wage labor is the minimum wage. Example, the quantum of the means of subsistence, which is absolutely requisite in a bare existence as laborer. That therefore the wage laborer appropriates by means of his labor merely suffices to prolong and reproduce a bare existence, making ends meet, scraping by day to day. We by no means intend to abolish this personal appropriation of the product of the products of labor, an appropriation that is made for the maintenance and the reproduction of human life, and that it leaves no surplus wherewith to command the labors of others. All that we want to do away with in the miserable character of this appropriation under which the laborer lives merely to increase capital, and is allowed to live only in so far as the interest of the ruling class requires it. Now, the bourgeoisie society living labor is but a means to increase accumulated labor. In communist society, accumulated labor is but a means to widen, to enrich, to promote the existence of the laborer. In bourgeoisie society, therefore, the past dominates the present. In the communist society, the present dominates the past. In bourgeoisie society, capital is independent and has individuality, while the living person is dependent and has no individuality. And the abolition of this state of things is called by the bourgeoisie abolition of individuality and freedom, and rightly so. The abolition of the bourgeoisie, individual bourgeois independence and bourgeois freedom is undoubtedly aimed at. By freedom is meant under the present bourgeois conditions of production, free trade, free selling, and free buying. But if selling and buying disappears, free selling and buying disappear also. But if selling and buying disappears, free selling and free buying disappears also. This talk about free selling and buying and all other brave words of our bourgeoisie about freedom in general have a meaning. It at any only in contrast with the restricted selling and buying with the fettered traders of the Middle Ages, but have no meaning when opposed to communists. Abolition of buying and selling, the bourgeoisie conditions of production, and the bourgeoisie itself. You are horrified at our intending to do away with private property, but in your existing society, private property is already done away with for 9/10 of the population. Its existence for the few is solely due to its non-existence in the hands of those 9/10. You reproach us, therefore, with intending to do away with a form of property. The necessary condition for whose existence is the non-existence of any property for the immense majority of society. In one word, you reproach us with intending to do away with your property, precisely so that it is just what we intended. Now, from that moment when labor can no longer be converted into capital, money, or rent, or into social power capable of being monopolized, example, from the moment when the individual property can no longer be transformed into bourgeoisie property, into capital, from that moment you say individuality vanishes. You must therefore confess by individual you mean no other person than the bourgeoisie, than the middle class owner of the property. This person must indeed be swept out of the way and be made impossible. This is our study Bible study of the Communist Manifesto, or more of just a reading of it, because we just want to know what it sounds like and what it's about, because it's a very wide topic these days. But our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us not our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And deliver us from evil. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. And Revelation 17:14 tells us, and these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall conquer them. For he is Lord of lords, he is King of kings, and they who are with him are called and chosen and faithful. God bless and amen.